Hello and welcome to the Gnostic Warrior radio show and podcast, broadcasting from GnosticWarrior.com in San Diego, California to around the world. I'm your host, Mo, and today on the show we have author Timothy Freke from TheMysteryExperience.com. Tim has written and co-authored over 30 books on topics ranging from Gnosticism, religion, paganism, and spirituality. Tim is all about big love, sharing the light, and being an example of a man whose works prove what a great soul he is. It's truly an honor to have him on the show today, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the show today. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you.
It's really a great pleasure to be speaking with you, Tim. You know, I've been following your great work for some time now. You put several books out there, and then you have several podcasts that you have on the internet, videos, interviews, and I was really, really impressed with what you've had to say. And then 30 books, wow, and I'm sure you have many in the oven.
I've kind of lost count, to be honest. I mean, a lot of the books were written a long time ago, but yeah, there's been a lot of writing, a lot of talking, a lot of thinking, a lot of experiencing, a lot of sharing, and it's been a delight, and it's still going on, which is, I think, it's just a product really of my fascination with how strange it is to be alive, and wanting to penetrate it as deeply as I can.
From my point of view, you definitely are doing that, Tim. So you're accomplishing what you set out to do. What I've noticed in this arena of Gnosticism, truth, and conspiracy sometimes is that there's a negative connotation that comes along with it. What I mean by that, there's a lot of negativity being spread along with the truth. And it seems like you've taken a different path, the stand-up philosopher. And one of the great statements that you make is, you want to make it fun again and spread the love. Can you explain that, Tim?
Yes, well, for me, I'm glad you see that, because whilst I call myself a philosopher, really, I'm a love junkie. I mean, to me, the whole purpose of all of this is to wake up to the deep love that's inside us, and to share that with each other. And whilst beautiful ideas are indeed beautiful and a source of great joy and intrigue to me, ultimately it's when I dissolve into the big love, when I find this place where everything is one, and there's this love, that life becomes really worth living. That's the only place that makes sense. So I had a lovely little thing happen at a retreat a little while back, where at the end of the retreat, where we have been together diving into this visceral experience of love and oneness, so that people can really experience it, so get it in their bodies, not just as an idea. And so I just said at the end, I passed myself off as a philosopher, but really that's really a bit of a front. I'm a love junkie, and this lovely woman at the back just called out, "You're not a junkie, you're a dealer." And and that for me was like, oh, that's the nicest compliment I've been paid for a long time, because that's really what I think I want to do. And the stand-up philosopher idea was part of that, was to say, look, I am a philosopher, I am a thinker, I do write books, and I do share ideas, but I want to make it fun, I want it to engage people, and I want to escape the tag of the spiritual teacher, because it comes with so many negative connotations that I don't want to be part of. So much assumptions that somehow you're setting yourself up as somebody who's I know, a special sort of person in some way, and I don't feel that at all. I want to share this as a co-explorer of life with other co-explorers. So the stand-up philosopher seemed a fun way to do that, and gave me a chance to have some fun with it, to also be funny, but more to really engage with the ideas in a way that led people beyond the ideas to an experience which was of love, something which can actually transform how you experience your everyday life.
Because that's what it's really about, and the stand-up philosopher is basically kind of separating yourself from those spiritual guru teachers who I sometimes would call snake oil salesmen that are, the new age spiritual gobbledygunk in a bottle and has all your cures to all your ills,
it's a real
right?
problem for me because, I mean, I'm sure it's true in every area of life that if you go deeply into it, you discover that you get, I find myself frustrated by a huge amount of what passes for spirituality. And there's a lot of great people, of course, doing wonderful stuff, but a lot of it seems very superficial on the one hand, or just one-sided, either offering more than it can deliver, or just skirting on the surface. And that kind of specialness that comes with the whole guru thing, I feel like is past now. I really hope so. There's something about the whole idea of the whole experience of awakening is so egalitarian. It's such a place where we meet as equals that the idea of some sort of hierarchy really doesn't appeal to me and looks very lonely. Doesn't look like an attractive place to be at all.
I agree. And to become powerful, you need to look within. You need to find yourself. And that's part of, I believe, becoming a Gnostic. When you tap that inner gnosis, you become powerful and you don't need any outside source or a guru or some patriarch telling you what to do or where to find knowledge or love. Part of that trip of being a Gnostic is also that we are each on our own individual paths of Gnosticism to respect one another and the differences that we might have and the truths that we might find as well. In regards to philosophy, what is philosophy? What does it mean to you?
Well, I mean, the word itself, philosophia, it means love, wisdom. Philo is love, Sophia is wisdom. And the idea of the philosopher as a lover of wisdom is what appeals to me. The word love is right in there, and the wisdom I'm interested in is love wisdom. Like it's one thing. There's a level of insight that arises and a feeling that comes with it of connectedness, of aliveness, and of love. That it feels this is what philosophy is aiming towards. And I also kind of like the idea that Sophia is also the name of the goddess in Gnosticism and in the ancient pagan tradition, and so I quite enjoy the idea that I'm a lover of Sophia. I'm a lover of the goddess. That's my profession. I love the goddess. What do you do for a living? I love the goddess. I quite like that.
Yeah, that's basically the goddess Sophia is an allegory to wisdom, correct?
Yes, it's a name for wisdom, and I mean the figure of the goddess in mythology is a very interesting one, I think, because on its deepest level, what I see is a fundamental polarity between God and goddess, which you get in nearly all cultures, and the easiest way I can penetrate that is that the male aspect is the mystery of existence, the mystery of being, and that is, to use a very common analogy, the dreamer of the dream of life. It's the mystery from which everything's arising, the essence of things, or spirit. And then the goddess is the dream. She's all the forms. She's life. What the name often for the goddess in Gnosticism is Zoe, life, and she is all the forms. She is everything, all the thoughts and feelings and colors and shapes and sounds, and we're in her now. And so you get this fundamental polarity. So the idea of the wisdom is about loving life. It's about understanding life. It's being a devotee of life. And that mythic idea resonates with me deeply.
Does Sophia have any relation to women at all, or is it just the kind of what you said, the lover of life?
I think these archetypes play themselves out in men and women as a generalization. Like you said very wisely earlier, everyone's different, and everyone's a different combination of things, and that's what makes this all so interesting. But I think there is a resonance which can happen with men with the male principle, which is why a lot of male spirituality has both a beautiful abstract quality to it, a yearning for the one, a returning to the essence, but with that comes a negativity of rejection of life, rejection of sensuality, a rejection of samsara, the forms, the dream, the separateness, our individuality. Whereas with a lot of feminine spirituality, you get the opposite. You get embodiment. You get a love of the forms. You get an engagement with sensuality, and you get an interaction with the manyness of things. And my personal aspiration is to have both, is to go, right, look, the one and the many are the same thing, and I'm interested in experiencing both the primal oneness of the depths of my being and engaging with this glorious dream of separateness that we're experiencing right now, and that's the love.
So the goal is to basically merge the two and then balance the two.
Kind of, no, although in a way I feel like the way I'd say it myself would be more like they're already merged. They're already the same thing. Our deep nature, which is one, is expressing itself as this manyness of which we are also separate, so that you and I are both separate and not separate already. And when I get just lost in the separateness, I have one experience, but if I'm awake to the oneness and engaging with the separateness, then that's where the love is, because I see the difference between you and I and everything else and everyone else, and yet also this deep connectedness, and that is where the love arises.
No, that's great that you say that, because I sometimes feel like we're all on like a 12-string guitar, and we're all playing our different strings, and we all have to play our different tune, but we all kind of are playing it together, and we're all important.
I love that. I love that. I have a deep feeling of the same thing, that everyone is here doing something unique, and yet the same. And that's the paradox. The paradox is very central to all of my philosophy, what I call paralogical philosophy, which is based on paradox. So I'm constantly seeing the resolution I'm looking for is in paradox. So that is it. We're all doing something which is the same, and yet it's completely unique. And you get this love, like there's a lovely line in Walt Whitman, who I'm a great fan of because of the sense of ecstasy he has in his work. But he says, that what is the point of all this? And his answer is that you are here and you get to contribute a verse to this great song of life, which seems a lovely romantic thought.
No, that's great the way you put it, Tim. What's your thoughts on fear, the opposite side of the spectrum, the hate? And we see a lot of that in the truth movement and the Gnostic movement and everything, and actually the whole conspiracy front seems to be just inundated with that. And from what I gather, it's the lowest vibration, and I'm repelled from it. And the more I get into this, I realize that you need to get that out of your life. Can you explain your thoughts on fear?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that I think all of these emotions are natural. They're part of our humanity, and we need to make room for them and make space for them. And in their own way, they all play a role. I mean, fear is very, people often talk about fear as the opposite of love, for instance. I'm not quite sure that works for me, because there's a level of fear which is part of love. That love is so big it will embrace all of that. When my little kids were young, there was a fearfulness for their safety that arose from the love. There's a role that these things play. What happens, I fear, is that what happens, I see, is that if we've got just that, if we get sucked into a world of separateness, and we lose that deep connection with the one and with love, then the fear starts to become actually something very negative. And that's what I think you would see as a low vibration, or what you experience a kind of a repulsion from, and me too, because it feels this is not serving us. This is just increasing the paranoia in the universe. This is increasing the separation. What we need to do is find a deeper place to look at the same thing from, and bring love, bring healing, bring insight to these places, not to just to increase the amount of fear.
No, that's great the way you put it. It seems like we've lived in this world, which, of course, I know you've written a lot about religion and, mysticism and so forth, so you know a lot about history over the last 3,000, 3,500 years, and we lived kind of I believe, in a state of war pretty much that whole time. Do you think we have this tendency, because we live in like a conspiracy, we're kind of born into it, and that's why we gravitate towards it at first? Because I too gravitated towards more of the fear kind of paranoia stuff, where it wasn't really truth and I thought it was, and then eventually I kind of saw the light and gravitated towards my own studies and looking back at the old books and history and the great historians, as opposed to the internet and these modern websites.
Well, that's such a great question. That is a great question. What is that? I mean, it's not something which has happened for me, so it's not something which I I've got from personal experience, and partly I think that's probably just because of my age, that, you know, when I was beginning my journey, there was no internet, and so this whole plethora of information and disinformation was not available. And I think what it does is it does play into our uneasiness and ultimately fear that something malevolent is going on in the world, and that's because it is. There's plenty of malevolent going on in the world, and to pretend otherwise is foolish. But it can easily become exaggerated, and the key thing is, I think, is doubt with all of this. When people get sucked into anything, whether it's a religion or a conspiracy theory or any damn thing, and they lose that sense of doubt, they lose their consciousness. Because doubt is what makes us conscious. When you can hold up something to doubt, then you can either accept it on your own terms or not. And at that point, you've at least made it conscious. And you need to then carry on and be open to change, because that's how we evolve. And you've clearly done that. And that's what's happened for me on my journey too. I've been involved in all sorts of things that I've left behind. And it was only the ability, this beautiful ability we have to question. And really what that is not losing touch with the mystery. If you can stay in touch with this profound sense of the mystery of life, that this moment is actually inexplicable, that it is a mystery beyond words and always will be, then all the ideas that I have are all relative, approximations, best guesses, attempts at concepts to contain something far too big to ever be contained by anything. And then there's a humility that comes with that, which enables the mystery to come to even your most precious beliefs and doubt them, hold them up and go, is that right? Is there a better way? Is that the fullness of things? When you lose that and people really invest their identity in a set of ideas, that's when you get dogma, you get fear, you get these cults, you get paranoia around conspiracies, and you get organized religion, all of which don't serve us very well.
And it serves the powers that be, if anything. It keeps kind of the chaos and disorganization kind of perpetuating.
It does. And, you know, and there is no doubt in my mind that there's all sorts of things, you know, that people are attempting to do all sorts of things, which I really don't like. And there's individuals who are very caught up in their own separateness who perpetuate that. I mean, one of the simple insights I feel that has helped me is just seeing that when human beings lose sight of their deeper identity, or maybe have never even discovered it, and you really think you're a separate thing, then the logical thing is to just serve your separateness. And that's what people do. And that separateness can be your individual self, or your own family, or it can be a state, or it can be a religion, or it can be a race, or it can be anything which you identify with. And if you think that's who you are, then, you know, if I think I'm just Tim, well, I'm going to get what's out there for Tim. And it's only when we actually see that we're much more than that this natural, intuitive empathy and compassion just kicks in, and all of that becomes impossible. You just couldn't do it. It's not that you just don't want to do it. You're impelled to do the opposite. So the more we can bring that into the world, the more the other will start to pass. And my own sense is that every single human being is essentially the same. We're all on the same journey, and people can awaken anywhere. And that even in these places where people are acting very badly, people are awakening. You know, people are awakening in every station in society. And when they do, they try their best to bring these things into that area of society. And it's hard. It's a hard thing to do because largely we're unconscious. But that's kind of what this is, I think. This is a process of becoming more conscious. So, you know, to use a possibly very crass analogy, but, you know, it's like being in a school and complaining that everyone is still learning how to spell. It's like, well, of course, you're in a school. That's what it is. So it's like, or being in a hospital and going, God, this place is full of sick people.
It's, Tim, you know what I find fascinating is I agree that we're all the same, yet, again, we're all uniquely different. What makes each one of us different? Is it our soul? Is it our DNA? Is it a combination of those things?
I think they might be the same thing from two different perspectives. There's a beautiful image created by the ancient pagans and the Gnostic Christians, where they take a circle with a center and then infinite radii coming out from the center to to the edge, to the circumference. And in that, the center is spirit. It's the essence. It's the one. And the lines coming out are individual souls or psyches, what we would call today a psyche. That, we're experiencing it right now, that thing which is not in the world, the place where these ideas are arising from and the place where you're hearing them. And then there's the body, which is in the world, which if we were together you could see, and you can hear my voice, that sensual reality. And what makes you and me, it seems to me, is that we are separate psyches, souls, arising from one source. And that, so we, on the one end of the polarity of our nature, we're the same thing, and at the other end, we terminate, as it were, in a different physical embodiment of that, which is in a different time and place, well, unique time and place, which is interesting in itself. Each one of us inhabits a unique time and space.
So the idea there, each one of us would possibly inhabit a different sphere in those rings. So we're all made of the same essence, but our consciousness... Okay.
Sorry, so in that analogy, and it's a Pythagorean analogy, but in that analogy, what it's trying to capture is the radii. Each one of us is one of the lines coming out from the center to the circumference. So the place where we're meeting on the circumference is the body, and the place where we're all one is the center, which is a point, which is in literally has no dimensions by definition. So it's the center of everything, and that what you and I are is this flow of experience of soul, which is also going back to Sophia. That's another aspect of what Sophia is. She's that flow of experience, which we call life, which includes the body and shows up as unique DNA and uniqueness of our bodies and uniqueness of our time and place in the world. So, but what we essentially are is something which is soul, which is arising into physicality, and that on the one hand we are completely unique and separate, and manifesting a unique path through life, but on a deeper level, we are the one appearing as someone. And there is a place where we can discover that the life or the being in me is the same as the being in you, if we look deeply. And that's a massive revelation.
So we're essentially, what you're saying is the immortal souls reincarnated in flesh multiple times and with multiple experiences.
Yeah, well, I mean, these are fantastic questions. We're getting into deep metaphysical territory, which I don't go into that much, so it's quite fun. Funnily enough, I've just been writing about it today. So no surprise it came up. The way it looks to me is that the analogy I often use for life for awakening is that life is like a dream. And it's an analogy because life isn't a dream. Dreams are dreams and life is life. But in trying to understand life, we can only ever call on things within life as an analogy. And some of them are good analogies and some of them not so. But the idea of life being like a dream is a very profound and old analogy, and I find it very powerful. And part of what I find powerful about it is it captures this paradox of the self, which I've been pointing to, which is that my nature right now when I'm awake is obviously, it seems to me it has these two opposite poles, which are obvious in a dream. So if I think about dreaming, when I dream at night, I have I appear as a certain person in the dream, in a dream world, having a dream adventure, seems very real, and yet I have a deeper nature. And what my deeper nature is the dreamer, which within the dream has no form, or is all form. And the dream is one with the whole dream, even though I'm experiencing the dream from appearing to be one person within it. And my experience of awakening, and what I hear from many, many of the other people throughout the centuries who've been exploring the same thing, is that this is similar now. That when you wake up to the essence, you're waking up to the awareness, if you will, from which the dream of life is arising. And then there's Tim, who's in the dream, and through which this awareness is experiencing it. But he's not. But that awareness is also experiencing it through you and everyone else. So if I look within the dream, I'm separate, and there's many of us. And I'm a different guy. I'm experiencing it from this perspective. I'm sitting in Glastonbury in the UK. You're in the US. And yet, if we come back into our deeper nature, it has no form, or it's all form, and I'm one with everything. Now, that's my very deepest nature. What I feel happens, what's in between those two is another thing, which is, we're talking about soul, which is that spectrum between the two, which means that there's another level to our identity, which we can wake up to when we die, which has the same relationship to Tim that Tim has to all the different dream personas he's dreamed himself to be. I mean, God knows how many people how many different Tims have I dreamt myself to be in thousands of dreams in my lifetime. And they didn't know anything about each other, but they were all part of me. And that there is a deeper level to myself which I can wake up to, in which Tim is a fragment of that. And that is what I take from the ancient teachings, ubiquitous teachings of reincarnation.
So you were Tim in a previous life, basically, and you're evolving through each. That's the purpose of living this life.
Yes, or I would say more that forgive me if I'm not very clear on this, because this is
Sure.
this is stuff which I'm struggle to articulate, which is why I don't get into these conversations too much, because I'm trying to find the language to really capture it. But what I'm suggesting is that there is a deeper level to my identity, whose relationship to Tim is comparable to Tim's relationship to all the people that I've dreamt myself to be in dreams at night. So that so in the way that Tim right now, the person in this waking world talking to you, is all of those different dream personas. And I dream and I wake up, and I dream and I wake up, and I dream and I wake up, and I have to dream. I have to go to sleep. I don't really know why. We don't quite understand why, but I have to. And I know when I've gone for many days in my youth, with the help of all sorts of stimulants and not slept, then life has become very strange, and eventually I've passed out and had to sleep. I have to go to this other place to sustain this, otherwise this doesn't work. And my sense is that there's a deeper level to my identity, which is not Tim, but contains Tim. And that level of my identity has to play out this coming into human form, or it coming into this, or coming into some form, to explore itself. And that's what I'm doing right now. And that I have no memories of all those other forms that I've been, any more than I have when I dream, I have a memory of other dreams. And yet there is a place which we can come to, I think it's where we come to at death, where we do see that.
Yeah, and it seems like you're living that life, and you're being true to that soul. Do you say that's part of being happy and loving life is being true and living how you're supposed to, and that knowledge in this life is old knowledge relearned?
Yeah, I think the more you come into touch with it, a very natural process starts happening, whereby that's the place that you're conscious of starts living more consciously through you. So the deeper I'm able to go, the more that starts to manifest through me.
Yeah. Yeah, and my understanding, this is kind of where I've come to is Gnosis, essentially, is where you become one with your soul and you recognize exactly what it is, and you pursue wisdom, philosophy, and you be true to it, and you create light and works of art that makes your soul happy. That's what we're supposed to do.
That's so beautiful. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. I think that is a beautiful way of attempting to put it. That the more we come into touch with our deeper nature, the more that there's because I think in polarities and paradoxes, what I call paralogically, for me, there's always two sides to these things. But they're the same thing, but from two perspectives. So one of the frustrations I have often with spiritual traditions is that they will talk about self-realization, but I always want to add yes, and self-expression, so that it's not enough just to know yourself. There is also the other pole, which is to show yourself, and there's always these two things going on. So certainly in my life, that's been very dominant, that I want to both wake up to these deeper levels of what I am, to make them conscious, and then to bring through, that's what the love is really, to bring through gifts, to offer what I can out there to my fellow travelers, who are all aspects of me anyway, on a deeper level.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Tim. I know, again, you don't talk about all those things, and kind of wanted to get your thoughts, because I believe you're a deep thinker and a great philosopher, so I appreciate the time that you had spent sharing those things that you don't share with everybody.
It was nice to do it. I enjoyed it.
Great. I wanted to get into some Gnosticism a little bit, because this is the Gnostic Warrior, and a lot of the listeners are into this, and sometimes we're into the controversial subjects that you seem to not shy away from with much of your books. And one of the books from 2006, The Laughing Jesus, Religious Lies and Gnostic Wisdom, and then you had another book that was prior to that, Jesus and the Lost Goddess, The Secret Teachings of the Original Christians. Let's first go over the Laughing Jesus, Religious Lies and Gnostic Wisdom. Can you tell us a little bit about that book and what it's about?
Yes, I mean, well, I'll be talking about the way I see things in polarities, and that's a very polar book, in that Peter Gandy, my dear friend who I wrote that with, and myself, decided we write it in two distinct sections. The first is called The Bathwater, and the second, The Baby. And the first is really looking at the three major religions that impact strongly on the West of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and really pointing out that none of them are what we think they are, and then in the second half suggesting that within all of these things, however, there is a perennial wisdom, which is the wisdom of waking up to oneness and love, put very simply, and that we need to keep reinventing that. And what the great teachers in all of these traditions had done was reinvent it, and we needed to do that now, so we can get rid of the bathwater and keep the baby. But that really was the end product of a process which started with a book called The Jesus Mysteries. And it was the Jesus Mysteries which I think is going to be the most interest to people in terms of my insights on Gnosticism, because it was that was our big bestseller. That was the one that really did storm the bestseller, much to my surprise, got into the top 10 in the US and the UK and Amazon and God knows what. And what we were doing there was specifically looking at Christianity. And whilst we have looked at Judaism and Islam, and there's interesting things to say, my area of expertise with Peter is primarily on the origins of Christianity and an understanding of our own Christian tradition in a radically new way.
And basically, you have the same thoughts as I do, that Christianity was basically Gnosticism concealed in allegory, and a specific group or priesthood had taken these teachings and decided to hide the original teachings, the original Gnostic teachings, and it was pretty much a us against them kind of thing. Is that how Christianity started?
I think there was eventually an us against them thing, but I think it didn't start as that. I think it started as a Gnostic current, which and I use the word Gnostic here. I mean, one thing is important with the word Gnostic is that no Christians call themselves Gnostics. This is being retrospected on them, but it's a handy phrase and it's a lovely name. So the first thing to grasp, I think, is that, as you say, that by the time Christianity really starts to surface and we become aware of it historically, you have got two wildly different approaches to Christianity, one of which can be called loosely Gnostic and one which we call literalist. And what marks the two out, I think, is that the literalist Christians, who will eventually become the Roman Church and everything which has come from it, which is just about every single form of Christianity in the world today, based itself around the idea that this story of a God-man who came to earth to redeem you through his death and resurrection, had 12 disciples, blah, 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 did all these miracles, that this was a true miraculous story. This happened. This was somebody who came and did this, and that if you believe in this, pistis, belief, if you believe, then when you die, you'll be okay, and if you don't believe, then you'll be tortured forever by a God of love, which is sort of a little bit strange, but there we go. But that view, and then the Gnostic view, which was, no, this is all about gnosis. This is about an experience of knowing for yourself, deep knowing, and it's not about belief, it's about knowing. And the gnosis arises when you understand that this whole story is not about a man at all. There is no Jesus. This is an allegory. This is a myth, but it's a myth of initiation, and it's about the process which a initiate goes through to arrive at the gnosis, which is a death and a resurrection, a coming back to life. And the interesting, in the Greek, in which it's all written, the word for resurrection also means awaken. So you get this lovely play of coming to the gnosis through the process which is laid out in the gospel story. And of course, that's only one story, because as soon as you go look, the Gnostics are the original Christians. You have a whole body of work, much bigger than the four rather similar books that we have in the New Testament. You have all of these others, as you know, all of these other Gospels, which gives you a much richer mythology, which also involves the myth of Sophia, the Christian goddess, and you see that the myth of Jesus is a correlate of the myth of Sophia. They fit together.
Do you think the purpose that they had took these teachings and, it's either you take this Bible or this religion or you get the sword, was that they wanted to unite everybody, or was it a combination of conquering the world and uniting everybody? Because it seems when I look back at the history, we were always kind of warring with each other, whether it be over land, tribes, or teachings. It seems like the group of the Christians, when they had formed, they decided, hey, this is the doctrine we're going to go with, this is what we agree with, and anybody who doesn't agree with is either with us or against us. And then that's kind of where we've been the last 2,000 years.
Well, you're right about that, and still are in many ways. I think it's a kind of a combination of different things. I mean, the first thing, which I also need to mention, and these are big things which if people are not familiar with, I guess many people will be listening to this, but is that the major claim of our book, The Jesus Mysteries, which came out in 1999, was that the Jesus myth is not only a myth, it's a pagan myth. It's based on numbers of other myths which coexisted in the ancient world of a dying and resurrecting God-man who's born of a virgin and walks on water and changes water into wine at a wedding, has 12 disciples, and dies and resurrects, sometimes even through crucifixion. And that what you've got across the ancient world is you've got many mystery cults which are all using allegorical myths, many of which have deep similarities with what will become the Jesus story. And that what's happening with that is that Gnostics probably in Egypt and Alexandria, that seems to be where it's happening, there's Jewish Gnostics, people who are immersed in pagan culture. They don't speak their native language anymore. They speak Greek. They're in Alexandria, which is the New York of the ancient world. All of these cultures are meeting and mashing up together, and they produce their own version of the mysteries. But they base it around their figure Joshua, who's a figure from the Old Testament, and it becomes eventually the Jesus story and the Jesus mysteries. And they change this figure Joshua, who in the Old Testament is very much a warrior, into Jesus, the Prince of Peace, who's much more this figure which is taken from Dionysus and Osiris and Mithras and Adonis and these other pagan figures. So when Christianity is first arriving in places like Rome, it is another mystery cult. It's the same as all the others. In fact, you get these lovely early writers, these other early pagan writers going, look, this is the same. You're just plagiarizing us. This is nothing new. But what starts to emerge is something new, and what that new thing is literalism. So that what changes is that whereas with all of the other myths, people are able to sit side by side, you've got your God, I've got mine, it's fine, just like you would get, say, in India today. With this new cult, the claim is, no, this really happened, and it's all about belief that it really happened. Now, that is incompatible now, because the others didn't really happen. And then you start getting this idea which arises in the 2nd century amongst this one group of literalist Christians, that the devil has come in advance. They've got to explain why the stories, the pagan stories, are pretty much the same as theirs, and their explanation is kind of a plagiarism by anticipation, that the devil has come in advance and created these stories to confuse people, so that when Jesus has actually come and lived out this story, people will be confused. Or can you see that already now something which was able to sit alongside other things, like in India or in ancient Greece or other places, can no longer do that, because it's now setting itself up as the one and only way. When you tie that into a culture which has a monotheism, then you start getting something which is dangerous, actually, and it is presenting a whole new facet, which is this is it. Not this is a way, this is the way. Now, when you combine that with the Roman Empire starting to fall to bits and desperately looking for a way to hold it together, that's when you get this vicious eradication of everything else. I mean, firstly, the Gnostics, the Jews, of course, and then also pagan culture itself. I mean, eventually just beheaded, their heart torn out of the ancient world, and you get the Dark Ages, which is the result of it, because this idea of the way, which you must have imposed on you for your own sake, even, and as something which can hold together an empire which is fragmenting, is very dangerous, and the leftover of it is the Catholic Church.
When I look back at those times, Tim, I know, of course, the atrocities that, everyone is well aware of the Roman Catholic Church and, of course, Rome and various Greece. Everyone seems to have blood on their hands, but it seems also that not necessarily the Gnostics, they seemed pretty much not a warring people, but the tribes, the pagan tribes at the time up until about, it seems just so recently, the past couple hundred years, we seem to be living in Disneyland, or past 100 years. But prior to that, there was a lot of tribes, and we were warring with each other and always having this warring going back and forth, whether it be over tribe, whether it be over land. And they were pretty brutal. And it seems the Christians were attempting to, not only, they were brutal as well, but to domesticate mankind. Because I look back, all these tribes, they would cut people's heads off, drink out of their skulls. That was a common thing for thousands of years. We were eating flesh and doing all these atrocities in war. And I know some of that stuff still happens, but it seems like they were attempting to domesticate them. Do you believe that at all?
I think because I think the nature of life is paradoxical. I think there is always good and bad happening in these things at the same time. And there was a bad side to what happened with Christianity. We lost a huge amount of culture. We burnt all those libraries that contained information we only discovered 1,000 years later in the Renaissance. But something good also came out of it. And because right in the center of Christianity is this profound Gnostic wisdom. And all the way through you can hear these deep, wise voices, especially in the Gnostic current, which are trying to prevent to bring something new into the world. So right at the center of Christianity, to me, I don't know anything deeper, is this teaching where this figure of Jesus, this Gnostic superhero, comes in to a literalist Jewish religion and goes, which has got 1,000 different rules and regulations. Don't eat shellfish and get circumcised and don't wear your hair like this and all that stuff. And he comes in and goes, look, there's 2 commandments. And the second one is much like the first. And the first one is love God, love the one. And the second one is love others as yourself. Because if you know that, if you have the gnosis, you will see that they are yourself. And that's it. Now, that's at the center of Christianity. There's a love which is so big that it has the line, my favorite line in the whole of literature, love your enemies. Because that is a hell of a thing to say. And that must have been, that's confrontational to us today. Heaven knows what that sounded like in the ancient world. That is huge and counteracts everything which you've been describing so vividly, that vicious brutality. So I think what you're seeing is currents rising up trying to make us more conscious. The evolutionary journey of soul, of the world, coming to greater consciousness. And that's been a long and painful process. And all the way through, there have been individuals and groups who've come together, people like us, actually, at different times and different places, who've just gone, look, let's bring something new here. Let's bring love. Let's bring justice. Let's bring compassion. Let's not do things in the same old way. And through that, slowly, it has changed. I live in Europe, and we've had the first, whatever it is now, 60 years of peace in Europe in the whole of history. And that's incredible. There's still horrible things going on, but my God, it's moved forward at long last. Something's good has happened. And like you said, there is something civilizing in that. And it has showed, and it has come through. And individuating as well. One of the things which fascinates me is that the Christian current has led to the individuation of consciousness far better than, say, the Hindu current or the Taoist current, which are very good at the awakening to oneness, but have been nowhere near as good at helping the individuating process.
Yeah, essentially that's where all the Western education systems and universities come from, or the Catholic Christianity, correct?
Yes,
Catholicism.
that's the root, or rather, it's not as simple as that, because I think a huge current came in the Renaissance, which is Renaissance means rebirth. It's the rebirth of the ancient pagan knowledge, and the pagan knowledge is the Gnostic knowledge. It's the same thing. It's just a different parts of the same thing. So what happens in the Renaissance with the rediscovery of Plato and the Hermetica is this deep Gnostic undercurrent suddenly becomes conscious again, and that's really a huge impulse which has created the modern world. That's where science has come from. That's where the huge burst of art, of course, that happened at that time. That the literature leads to Shakespeare. All of that is coming from the rediscovery of our pagan roots. And part of what we wanted to do with the Jesus mysteries, by going, look, Christianity is paganism by a different name, in its essence, was to, or Gnostic Christianity is anyway, was to heal this schism in the Western soul that arose when this one current of literalist Christianity stamped out paganism, and we were cut off from our own roots. And we don't need to be. It's all part of one unfolding, and we can make it one thing again.
Do you think the same powers that be that had started Christianity, even though it doesn't hold, the Roman Catholic Church as it did before, but are still in power in various organizations, and they just allowed this wisdom and Gnosticism to be shared now?
Are they allowing it to be shared? I don't know. I mean, I think we're all part of the same evolutionary current. So everyone is moving and changing. I think there was a massive, I think the Second World War was a huge event for us. And what it led to was the 1960s, which was an explosion of no, not that, something else to that. And you saw this whole different consciousness come in. You see a connection from the West to the East and importing a lot of the Eastern knowledge, which is the same as the deep Western knowledge, but we'd kind of forgotten it. And that's just happened. No one's allowed it. People have made it happen of themselves, and we're feeling the repercussions of that still, and that's slowly working its way through, which is why there's been a new renaissance. I mean, I do think we are in a new renaissance, a similar moment that happened in Florence and elsewhere all that time ago is happening again, and we're very lucky to be part of that.
Do you think the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, various secret societies, that they wish for a one-world religion that mixes science and Gnosticism and everything we're talking about? When you study their teachings, it seems like they've been carrying them and progressing those for many years, and they're still active. Do you still think they're playing a large part behind the scenes?
I think they are doing things. I think there is good people doing good work very quietly. Some of which are unnoticed. I don't know how big their impact is. I know various groups who I have great respect for. I have immense respect for these movements historically because they kept the flame alive at a time when it was very dangerous. I can say things like there was no historical Jesus and I'm still alive. I haven't been burnt at the stake, but obviously I would have been. And a lot of these secret societies especially kept the Gnostic current alive, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to them for doing that through history, and that they're still here playing a role. I think is wonderful, and that vision, not of a monolithic oneness, but a univariety, the ability to find a commonality and to express it through a multiplicity of ways, is a beautiful vision, and one that human beings are trying to find in all sorts of ways. The essence of the democratic ideal is an attempt to try and see how we might do that politically. We're still stumbling like mad to work out how we can do it, but we're trying. We've got we're further forward than we were, and I think the same thing is applying in other spheres as well. And that if we can get rid of these, we've started slowly to transcend the nation state. And we also need to transcend what were really national religions or group religions that became international, of course, by bringing nations together. But we've got these different religious tribes too, and I think more and more people are looking at them and going, "That's not working, is it? That can't be right." And because we live in the world, as you said at the start of this conversation, of the internet and all the rest of it, you can find out all these other alternatives now. So it's harder to think. To hold on to, the thing I was brought up in, I was lucky enough to be brought up in the truth, is no longer so tenable as it would have been some time ago.
Let's finish off here the last part of this interview with your recent work, which would be the Mystery Experience, correct?
Yes, that's right.
The Mystery Experience, a revolutionary approach to spiritual awakening. You'd written a book, and then I also believe you're doing tours around the world as well?
That's right. Yes, I mean, having done these books, I wrote a lot of books on different spiritual traditions. Probably the major ones was on the Gnostic Christianity, the ones we've been talking about. Well, not probably, definitely. But I wrote books on all of the different spiritual traditions to some degree, bringing out the idea that underneath there's human beings who've experienced an altered state of consciousness, have gone into what I now call a deep awake state. And when they do, they struggle to express that in words like oneness and love and compassion and esoteric ideas. And my own passion, I guess, since I've been a boy, since I first discovered this, has been, how can this get into the mainstream? How can this become part of human culture, not just a little mystical ghetto? And so what I've been attempting to do in my last few books, and most of all in the Mystery Experience, was to express a form of a way of understanding spirituality, these deep ideas, which was simple but not simplistic, which could go for the very deepest thing but express it in a language that people could easily understand, which didn't contradict but could harmonize with our modern understanding of science, which is immense and I love. Could see that they do go together. They are paralogically complementary. They both, one is a study of the objective world and one of the subjective world, and that they and to present a way in which we could really actually experience this. So it goes beyond the ideas. So my greatest passion is not the books. My greatest passion is to run what I call Mystery Experience retreats, where I get together with a small group of people, 30, 40 people maybe, various, wherever I go, and to take a few days, weekend or whatever we've got, 5 days or whatever, and just dive into this. And what I've developed is some very simple ways that people can connect with themselves and with each other, which, much to my astonishment, if I'm honest with you, have turned out to be extraordinarily powerful. So that what I'm seeing right now, I mean, we just finished a retreat here a few weeks ago. We had 35 people. They arrived as strangers, and the depth that they went into the awakened state was astonishing. And the telltale sign of that, the thing which marks that out, is the experience of love. That this profound, the thing you can't fake, the thing which is just there, which you feel coming right into your, it's there in your deepest being, and then right down into your body and vibrating in every soul in cell in your body. So my greatest joy is to share that direct experience with people, so that we can meet as separate and not separate. We can meet as, I'm just Tim, I'm this guy on this crazy adventure, you're you, or you're somebody on this crazy adventure, and yet we're also conscious of this deep place where we're one, and therefore we're able to see the miracle and the mystery of life together, and to celebrate it in with all of its joy and suffering, all the things it entails. And that is sublime. I feel so lucky to be able to do that with people.
No, that's beautiful, the way you put it, Tim. And when I study alchemy and energy and healing and all the different things, it all comes back to love and to the mind and the fullness. So it makes sense that if people of like mind were to get together with a great teacher such as yourself, who's kind of the captain, love captain, and then you have a 3 or 5 day course set out where everything's pretty much thought out well ahead of time, and it's centered on love and teaching and the wisdom that you're speaking about, and I'm sure several other great things, and then everybody's experiencing that. I'm sure it has the power to heal and transform us. So what was interesting is you said it went all the way down to our very cells. And I know this is true, that this actually happens to us in our bodies, that thoughts do affect our cells and thoughts of others, and people can affect you, their energies. So if you get 35 people together and you're all manifesting this great love and this great wisdom and this great energy, I'm sure it's just transforming people.
It is, and what I really love is the people that come are so various. Because I'm a philosopher and I write serious books, I get serious people. But there's also, because I'm a love junkie, I get a lot of people who are interested in, who are feelers, who are not thinkers. With the last retreat, we went from the age range. The oldest lady there was 77, and we had a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. and everything in between. We had people from 5, 6 countries, all these different languages, and people were completely themselves, very different, not a type, just complete cross-section of different types of people from all sorts of different walks of life, brought together by a common sense of the mystery of life, and able in that, and then when we go through, when you see people, you know, because at first a lot of people come and they go, you know, I'm not going to get it. A lot of people have that, you know, oh, I'm just stuck in my mind. I've got it intellectually, but how can I actually get it in experience? The very common thing that people say to me. And my response is, look, you'll know when you get it. When the gnosis hits, you know, you can't miss it. And when it hits, they know. And to see it happen to everyone, not like, you know, oh, well, that person because they're advanced. You know, everyone, even the person who's been brought along, you know, the husband who's been brought by his wife and doesn't really know why he's there. You know, everyone everyone, because it's human. And then when we find it, rather than it being this place where we're all dreadfully spiritual, and kind of everyone's trying to act in a certain way or talk in a certain way, finally people start being themselves. And everyone's the quirky personality, you know, we all are, a bit weird, but lovely, and everyone is beautiful in their individuality, so that rather than having to pretend to be something they're not, they can finally be what they already are. And there's such a feeling of relief and relaxation and naturalness with that, that it's just adorable.
It is. It's beautiful. I made the analogy earlier of the guitar, the 12-string guitar, and when you were talking, I thought of a piano, almost like a mystical, you know, love piano, and we're all, you know, and sometimes I make the analogy. I have 5 children, and I realize that they're each different flowers in the garden.
Yeah.
You know, and the key is to nurturing them and let them be who they are. You know, and it makes me want to cry almost.
Yeah,
you know,
I know, I feel what you're saying. And one of the things which makes the approach that I'm bringing to this different to the approach that some people have been caught up in, is that whilst it is about waking up to the oneness, there is also celebrating the separateness. And because it's one, they're both of value. And so for me, I don't want people to, you know, destroy their egos or leave something behind or get rid of their separateness or see through something, any of that. What I want them to do is see the way it already is. And the way it already is, it seems to me, is that there is this profound oneness of our deepest being, and when we're conscious of it, there's a love which embraces everything, just as it is. And then there's this human self, which is here right now in a human body, which is by its very definition vulnerable and partial, and can be a great soul or can be an arsehole, either. And we all know that. And that there's a huge acceptance of our humanity, that we're able to actually embody our humanity. And then rather than pushing away life as it already is, we can engage with life as it already is. So that by being conscious of the one, we can enter into the human adventure more readily. By knowing the place where we're fundamentally safe, we can take the risk of really living. We can engage with the vulnerability of our humanity and see that in each other and take care of each other and encourage each other, so that you, like those flowers in the garden, we can actually encourage and water and nurture each other to bloom, rather than stomping on the individuality as if it's something which is in the way.
That's beautiful, Tim. Again, the way you put it, and I think you're proving actually scientifically in a way, if you think about it, you know, using philosophy, wisdom, and energy, is that when you have different people from different backgrounds, different ages, you know, it all comes down to love. And, you know, we're all uniquely different, but the thing that we all share together is that love and that one, you know, and we need to celebrate that. You know, what is next for Tim? You've just written this book and you're doing your tours. Are you going to continue this for quite some time, or would you like to share anything with your fans out there?
Well, I'm always working on new stuff. I mean, some of the stuff which we talked about right up at the beginning is areas that I feel like I want to bring the same level of clarity to that I hope I brought to the deep mystical stuff. I'm still intrigued. You know, one of the things about bringing science and this spirituality together genuinely, to see them as paralogically complementary, means that we have to harmonize, it seems to me, this incredibly powerful story we're getting from science of our objective, collective evolution, physical evolution, with the esoteric idea of individual soul evolution. And that these two, I intuitively feel, go together, and we need to find a way of articulating this. If we can, if spirituality is going to have an impact in the world, and God knows it needs to, in its deepest sense, not in its woo-woo sense, but in its deep sense, then it has to be able to engage with the place the modern world is right now. And where it is right now is it's being dominated by what I would call objectivist science, which has a great side to it. It is, it's incredibly insightful. It's allowed us to connect like this over the internet. Hallelujah. Fantastic, isn't it? It's brilliant. Its insights are extraordinary. But it comes with another side. And that other side is that it leaves us often with a very stark view of reality as a kind of an arbitrary thing which has arisen by chance, and we're clever monkeys clinging to a rock. And there is something which spirituality, this other science, the Gnosis, brings, which can bring warmth to that very cold vision, and that's its job, and that's what we've got to do. I mean, I love the fact that science and Gnosis are the same word. I mean, they both mean the same thing, but one's in Greek and one's in Latin. It's like these are two sides of the same thing. So I see myself as trying to do more of that, and then really my real passion, I guess, is to share this experience of the mystery experience, the deep awake state, the big love, with as many people as I get the chance to while I'm on the planet. And the more opportunities I've got to do that, the happier I am.
No, and you're doing that, Tim. I mean, with 30 books to the record, all the interviews and the retreats you've done, and the love that you're spreading, you're a living testament of that. And I appreciate the time you've spent with us. The best place to find you would be at themysteryexperience.com.
Themysteryexperience.com, yes, is the name of my website. There's plenty, as you said, there which people can explore. I'm contactable. I'm a human being. I'm at the end of an internet. I'm not some distant figure, and I do respond to people who contact me. You can find me on Facebook as well. And on themysteryexperience.com, there is a 5-minute film, of which I'm very proud, but it was made by a filmmaker I know called Nick Rolfe, and it's called The Mystery Experience. It's 5 minutes long, and it's my attempt to convey the actual experience of awakening. And it's a lovely, lovely place to visit. And if anyone's got 5 minutes and they'd like a nice experience, then I would urge them to go and explore it. Also, they can download from themysteryexperience.com the first third of my new book, The Mystery Experience, completely free, with courtesy of my publishers, which was very generous of them. So you can read the first third and see if you like it. So that's available, and you can sign up for a newsletter, and you'll get all sorts of goodies, such as what the interview we're doing now you'll be told about, so that you can check in with this stuff, and if you find it inspiring, it can help you on your own individual journey.
No, I did watch that video myself, and it was great and inspiring. You definitely know how to inspire people. And you've been given a great gift that you're not letting go to waste, Tim.
Oh, so, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
No, it means a lot to me, brother. So thank you for your time, Tim. I hope to speak to you again in the future. And again, you have 30 books. I'm sure each one of them has terrific reviews. I don't think there's one that's under 4 stars. They're all 4 or 5 stars. The last book, it says, I read continuously, searching for various perspectives on the broad topic of non-duality, enlightenment, medication. That was not a good one, but this one was, I have been looking for answers my whole life and found them all in this book. I've read many books on my quest, and none are as comprehensive as this.
Oh, how lovely.
And then, so you're getting great reviews, and you deserve it, Tim. So thank you again for your time.
Do you know what? There is one book that I want to mention. It's just come to me, because I think that what you're doing, having looked at your website, which is fabulous, and all the things that you're exploring, which is wonderful. I think the people who are connecting with you may appreciate it, and I just want to offer it in just because I have a little love affair with this book, and it's not a book which many people have read. And it's the last, when we were, after having written all of these various books on Christianity and Gnosticism with Peter Gandy, our final book together was called The Gospel of the Second Coming. And it is it's a comedy gospel. and it's a laugh out loud book. And writing comedy was so much fun. I want to share it with people because it's a way of exploring all of these same deep ideas, the historical ideas and the philosophical ones that we explore in the more serious books, but with our tongue firmly in our cheek. And it's a book that those people who stumble upon it really, really enjoy. And I would like more people to stumble upon it because I think they really, really have some fun with it. Not if you're easily offended. Don't read it if you're easily offended. Only if you're up for a laugh.
Well, and I think you had mentioned that about my website. It's usually my followers and the people that subscribe to me and are not easily offended.
I got that sort of feeling, which is why I thought I would recommend it to them, that they might like to check out The Gospel of the Second Coming. The subtitle is Jesus is Back, but this time he's funny. And my greatest achievement, I always feel, is that we had in the underground, the metro here, we had big posters with Jesus is back, but this time he's funny, to advertise the book, which cracked me up. I just because once you know that Jesus is a fictional character, then you can reinvent him, and he can be whatever you want him to be. So in our gospel, Jesus comes back to explain that Freke and Gandhi are right, and that he doesn't really exist, and that it's all a myth, and this is what the myth means, and it's good fun.
Good. Yeah, and you had said it got good reviews, so I'm sure it puts a smile. And we need to laugh a little more and love a little more, so I'm sure that's why you had recommended it as well.
Absolutely.
And,
we need some laughter.
Definitely. All right, Tim, take care of yourself, brother, and good luck to you in everything that you do. And like you say all the time, big love.
Big love to you, my friend. Bye.
Bye. Take care.